Thank you for having me, Steve. Thank you so much for listening. So today I'm going to be presenting you my article, The Art World's Tainted Love for Discovering Artists, the Case of Etel Adnan. A blurry black and white photograph depicts the artist and writer Etel Adnan reading in front of a microphone. Facing the camera, a script in her hands, she stands on what appears to be a stage. Spotlit, comfortable in a shirt and loose plaid pants, there is a smile on her face. It's hard to say where this image was taken. It could have been in Paris, Beirut, or Sausalito, cities in which she has lived, or elsewhere. It's also unclear what kind of a place this is, though it looks more like an underground poetry bar than a museum. We don't know the date, but she appears to be young, maybe in her mid-30s, which would make it somewhere around 1960. When Adnan passed away, I had just finished my thesis on her in May 2020. In a recent interview, when asked how she felt about garnering accolades for her art much later in life, Adnan responded, "To be honest, I didn't expect recognition. I was happy to keep going. Some people I know liked my work. In the beginning, every article started with mentioning my age. I thought it was funny. But I got a little annoyed. I won't make an issue out of that. Most female artists who are well known today became known later in life." This so-called recognition, which arrived later in life, was part of a larger phenomenon. In the last decade or so, the art world has engaged in a process of institutional self-critique and self-conscious expansion of collections in an effort to be more inclusive. Western institutions have started engaging in initiatives to diversify their programs and holdings to make up for historical underrepresentation. There have been different kinds of underrepresentation: gender, geographical situation, class, race, ethnic minority, status, and often a mixture of more than one. These initiatives have been promoted by institutions and press through a common language around this phenomenon. This language evolves around the word, quote-unquote, discovery, often followed by other shared phrasing such as finally getting their turn, forgotten, overlooked, ignored. Discovery is, of course, a historically loaded word. It brings to mind Columbus's discovery of America, a contested discovery that ignored the presence of the indigenous Native American peoples and their distinctive civilizations. In a general sense, discovery means the act of finding something that hadn't been known before. In dictionaries, this definition is followed with an example such as, "It was quite a discovery when I came upon this beautiful mountain stream." A close reading of this example will reveal that the beautiful mountain stream was there before the discovery occurred, and it will continue to be there afterward. Its existence doesn't depend on the arrival of the eye, who came later to experience it. Is there a way to describe the encounter while still acknowledging the stream's presence? Looking at this perhaps accidental allegory from an institutional perspective, we can for a moment imagine artistic practices of underrepresented artists as mountain streams, and the position of the eye as the position of the acclaimed Western institutions. Now we can rephrase the question: how can we do justice to the existing exhibition histories of these artists while organizing exhibitions for them at Western institutions? The narrative of how Adnan's career shifted in the last decade provides a valuable case study. We can start by looking at how Adnan's work has been curated and exhibited at Western institutions, including Documenta 13 in Kassel, Obrist's monographic exhibition of Adnan's work, The Weight of the World, at the Serpentine Gallery in London, or Yuncecu's new work Etel Adnan at SF MoMA in 2018. In each case, a discovery narrative limited a broader understanding of her work. It's clear that these curators helped give Adnan more visibility at Western institutions and provided her opportunities to share her practice with new audiences. However, when her long biography was absent from the actual exhibitions, it didn't open up enough space for her exhibition history and existing bibliography, strengthening the idea that these curators and museums discovered her. Other curatorial tendencies did the same. One was to emphasize her painting practice over other aspects of her work, as was the case of Documenta and SF MoMA. Another was to separate her artistic practice from her writing, presenting her as an artist in exhibitions and as a writer in events and public programming. Some curatorial decisions also tended to narrow her career to specific locations. Documenta 13, for example, presented her in relation to Lebanon's sociopolitical context, displaying her palette knife next to the melted objects from Lebanon's civil war. But Adnan had a multifaceted life and career, one that shifted between different geographies and mediums, and one that wasn't fully shown in the discovery narratives. She was born in Beirut in 1925 to a Syrian father and Greek mother. She lived in Paris, Beirut, Sausalito, produced paintings, tapestries, leporellos, films, drawings, and ceramic works, worked as a journalist, published many books, ranging from poems and plays to fiction, winning numerous awards. Throughout her life, Adnan made and showed art actively at galleries in Amman, San Francisco, Oregon, Paris, Beirut, Rabat, Washington, D.C., and London, among many others. In 2014, Etel Adnan in all her dimensions, curated by Obrist at Mataf in Doha, aimed to showcase this multidimensional characteristic of Adnan's practice, an approach distinct from the tendency to focus on her paintings or to segregate her artistic and writing practices. But when he brought over a show to the Serpentine in London, the slim catalogue omitted her life story and a systematic accounting of her artistic career. Also, this exhibition was small. It included fewer works than Mataf. This was also the case for her most recent survey at the Guggenheim Museum, which closed recently. To put it simply, the various curators involved have different goals, norms, and curatorial agendas. In 1994, Palestinian-American art historian Salwa Mikdadi featured Adnan in her exhibition Forces of Change at the National Museum of Women in the Art in Washington, D.C. Mikdadi is, among other things, an art historian. She aimed to build an accurate historical accounting of the included artists' careers, and through that accounting, build legitimacy for the artists she represented. Inclusion was part of her agenda, but her method was also personal. As an Arab woman, she saw gaps in the historical record and aimed to fill them. What does the discovery narrative do? On the one hand, it gives more visibility and acknowledgement. On the other hand, it narrows down complicated histories or omits them altogether. Artists being presented by Western institutions for the first time get portrayed as exhibiting for the first time in their careers. This understanding assumes that they weren't acknowledged before. This institutional narrative of rediscovered artists therefore creates a myth around their practice. Their histories outside Western institutions or by non-Western curators do not get counted. Eventually, discovery assumes the prerequisite of an acknowledgement from the cultural mainstream, one naturally positioned in the West. It creates a hierarchy between West and non-West, between institutional spaces in the cultural mainstream and spaces and cultures relegated to outsider status, non-Western museums and small or mid-sized institutions. So as we remember and celebrate Adnan's legacy here today, I would like us to think about this question. What would a retrospective that opens space for dialectical movement look like? Let's imagine a retrospective for Adnan in which the artwork generates the form of the exhibition. In this exhibition, we could acknowledge the multidimensionality of her practice in relation to different geographies and mediums. And it would make Adnan's previous exhibition and writing history present in the catalog or the exhibition space. In this imagined exhibition, we could value Adnan's image on the stage at an underground bar as much as her awards from acclaimed institutions. There would be no celebration of discovery, but instead a storytelling of what actually happened. What if the solution to exclusion is not inclusion alone, but inclusion with a responsibility to history? Such a retrospective would demand resources, time, energy, and space, as well as generosity, love, and care. Imagine the benefits of such an approach, one that not only challenged the discovery narrative, but also embraced the histories of all the beautiful mountain streams. Thank you for listening, and before I end, I would like to actually end with a personal note and a poem that I wrote with Adnan in mind. I know that here there are many people who knew Adnan, who were friends, collaborators, or who Adnan was a role model for, and I am one of those people. When I moved from Istanbul to the Bay Area 5 years ago, I can say that I found solace in Adnan's writing, and she really guided my thinking, and I feel really lucky to be in her orbit. And I wrote a little poem with her in my mind, so I will just read that. Here it goes. It's called A Cosmological Feast. The urge to wait on the line as the music gets distorted and ugly, pulling the hair on your body away. The courage to wait in that moment and to say N as Nancy, A as apple, Z as zebra, not knowing how to continue the rest, 17 letters in total, half an alphabet. Begging the letters to help you, knowing that they won't. As the tongue delves into the sea of sorrow, dark and sticky, but keeping the urge and to wait, to be able to hold yourself along the letters, the monstrous self, in their words. With a mirror in hand, broken or not broken, holding on or letting go, depending on where you stand in relation. So wave at your neighbor as the muddy tune continues within the tunnels of your ears. Think of Etel, who was born today, the day a war starts somewhere far away. So with a broken accent, hold there, think about Tamalpais and the moist roots forming below. You don't have the privilege to mourn, so eat those words for lunch, juicy round-shaped half-moons, a broken orbit, the icy moon, and the heated sun. Put them into your mouth one by one, feel them slide down. A cosmological feast at the end of the world. Enjoy. Thank you.